right, let me say hello and welcome and give the official cheers to each and every one of you. Welcome to another edition of Happy Hour with the Lincoln. As you can see, I do not have whiskey again. We're going to stick with the coffee. I don't know if that's officially a happy hour because happy hours are synonymous with libations. We're going to go with the coffee for a little while. Now, if this is your first time stopping by, happy hour is where I'll do my best to answer all of your stock market related questions, tales, rant about stock market topics, and try to shed some light. 2 decades of my experience, knowledge, and hard knock lessons, and funnel those into your direction so you guys can be more successful, more profitable, and shorten your learning curve. As always, if you need help with your personal trading, somewhere on the screen will appear a link. Visit me, trade live with me each day. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the fallout from a second wave lockdown from coronavirus. As many of you know, you saw the news this week, where many countries, Germany, France, possibly Spain, are moving into curfews and full lockdowns all over again. And the question is this something that's going to be globally? Is this something that's going to end up in the United States? I'm going to talk about that. But more specifically, I want to talk about quickly the financial ramifications of a second wave lockdown. And of course, something that's now exposing itself that I think is more dangerous than COVID ever was. And that's the social impact and the psychological impact of second wave lockdowns and people having to adjust their lives. So we'll first talk about the financial impact. And I know most countries around the globe did not want to have to go into a second lockdown. Now, whether you think it is bullshit or not, that's irrelevant at this point. We're not governments, we can't control it. And I think each and every one of us are really starting to understand even more that we don't have freedoms. Governments can in fact control this. I know this is a completely different rant and another topic. I'll touch on that some other time, but it feels like our freedoms are being chiseled away little by little each day because of this COVID. And I think I speak for a lot of people in saying that most of us are just not cool with some of this stuff. So let's kind of focus first about these financial implications. When coronavirus first hit, you saw that impact financially and globally in all stock markets around the world, where you saw this immediate thrust of panic and everybody not understanding what COVID was and just kind of saying, hey, we need to be safe. We need to get on board with this thing. We need to understand more about COVID, and then we can make some logical, scientific decisions. And I think your first initial knee-jerk reaction to that was, once that COVID hit and the impact was done to the market, or the devastation, I should call it for lack of a better word, once that was done to the market, you sort of had this hope and optimism that came by. Government stepped in, promised stimulus to struggling businesses, promised stimulus programs to help citizens, get through this time. Most employers kept their employees and moved them to working at home. So at that point in time, and I'm talking about March and April, May, June, maybe up to midsummer here, we're thinking, okay, this is something that's short term, probably going to come up with a vaccine. We're going to get through that. So hope and optimism returned to people. Thinking about second wave lockdowns, which we'll talk about second psychologically, people were on board with that because it's like, okay, it's just a short-term blip on the radar, and so on. Now that you've entered what is normally flu season around the world in the winter, where most countries will experience some form of winter, you're starting to see, people are starting to realize, the economy's starting to realize, COVID isn't going away. There isn't a vaccine that's ready in the next few days, in the next few weeks. And it's going to be here to stay. And with all these other countries doing second lockdowns, people could barely survive. Some didn't survive the first lockdown. How are they going to survive a second one? There's not enough stimulus to help the average person, the average business owner, the small business owner, the engine of America, and I'm sure it works that way overseas in European countries too. They rely heavily on tourism. They rely heavily on small businesses, shops that sell things. These people are screwed. I mean, how are they going to continue to get stimulus and survive when you're working one day, then not, when you're under this threat from your government to constantly be shut down? So basically, in a really short, quick bullet point here, the second wave lockdown could be absolutely devastating. I think every country wanted to avoid this. Again, whether you think it's bullshit or not, that's not up to us. We don't control the governments. But many of these countries felt that's the only way that they could contain this, keep the hospitals, into an operatable order by not being overflowed. And that was the best thing that they can do, whether you agree with it or not. So a second wave lockdown could have enormous consequences to the financial markets. And I think the financial markets are starting to realize this as well. They were under the impression that this was going to be a short-term disease. We were going to pass through this like an autumn breeze. And now they're starting to realize we're going to be stuck with this for a really long time, or much longer than we ever thought. And there's going to be a lot of businesses and a lot of companies that just cannot survive through this type of an environment. And that's just all there is to it. So you kind of have to rethink about who's going to survive, who's not going to survive. And even these large companies that really benefited from lockdowns, such as ZM and Docu, and how these tech companies and more people spent money on Amazon and did stuff like that. At some point, that will even stop, because if people don't make any money and they cannot go to work and their income is cut, they will cancel things like their Netflix subscription. They will stop buying small garbage knickknacks and bullshit on Amazon because they just don't have any more money. They're just down to necessities and food. So again, this could be enormous, beyond anything that we've ever seen. Because when I look back at stock market crises that I have lived through, I first think of the .com, which was my introduction into trading. And it was just like greed. Everybody was just greedy. We got caught with our hand in the cookie jar and it just, you smacked it and my money was gone. Okay, we're going to be all right. Same thing with the credit crisis. It was greed engineers. Okay, oh, the banks ripped some people off. Okay, we lost some money. Whatever, we're going to be okay. Coronavirus is completely different because nobody knows if we're going to be okay. Nobody knows if this disease is going to last forever, if it's going to be a continuation into next summer. I mean, we all thought it was going to be a couple of months probably. Are we going to be like this next year? And the year after that? How long is this thing going to take? What if it manifests into a worse pandemic and people get second and third infections, which you're starting to see now, people getting coronavirus twice and 3 times. I don't mean to laugh, but I'm thinking, man, you want to talk about your luck? You get coronavirus 3 times. It's like, whoa, man. But, this is something that's just an unknown that the markets have not had to deal with, and it could create an epic correction or an epic collapse that we've never seen before. So I don't want to scare anybody. It's a day-by-day thing, and it's an important time coming up in the country with elections and stuff. What I really want to focus on a little bit more here is starting to focus on the social and psychological impacts of extended coronavirus. And you might be entering this area where you're starting to think that the psychological fallout is worse than actually getting coronavirus itself. So think about all of us right now. When the first coronavirus lockdown came by, most of us were on board with it. We're like I said earlier, we need to get some data. Let's listen to some scientists. Let's get a really good idea of what we have here. And we did that. And I think all of us have our own, it's not a political speech. We all have our own ideas of whether coronavirus is garbage, BS, it's serious or not. You have both people divided on both sides. That's not what this is about. But I think I speak for everyone when we're all kind of in this position where just naturally as human beings, we hate having things taken away from us, right? We are used to living a life in a certain way, right? So we want our lives back because we don't feel free right now. We don't want to stay home for 14 days. We want to go to sporting events. We want to go to concerts again. We want to have gatherings and weddings and parties. You got a holiday season coming up. We want to be together. We want to be social. It's already inconvenient enough to wear the mask. I know it sounds crazy, but a lot of us are just tired of wearing a mask everywhere, tired of all of these restrictions. It starts to make us feel like we are imprisoned. That's number one. So it works on this psychological effect in us that we no longer feel free. We're always like, can't go to my favorite restaurant, can't go to my favorite sporting event, can't see my favorite sport team, can't see the things that some sporting events canceled, some events canceled, things that people look forward to all year long, special moments, time with family. It's gone. And when something is taken from you from outside sources, let's just be straight up, it pisses people off, pisses me off too. That's one social consequence, that it just naturally will create an overall dull, depressive state for most people. Now, what does this lead to? Extended times at home leads to idle time. And you're seeing this right now. Staying at home will lead people to do bad things in most cases. Unfortunately, they're not going to take this time and use it wisely. Times like this will lead people to increase alcohol usage. This is studies that have been proven so far that alcoholic consumption and alcoholic sales have gone higher during the lockdown. So people are drinking more alcohol. Not me, I had coffee. People are probably ingesting more types of drugs, whether it's illegal drugs, recreational drugs, or prescription drugs. I mean, there's got to be an overall thicker piece of depression that's going through our country. And some of these people have family members at home, kids growing up in this type of an environment where you're feeling boxed in. And it's going to lead to more and more alcohol, gambling, drug addiction, and these psychological problems, broken relationships, failed marriages. You're going to have all kinds of psychological and emotional fallouts from COVID. And you have to ask yourself the question, as I am asking myself, would you be better off just getting COVID and fighting through that than having to deal with these long-term consequences of maybe you get a gambling addiction, that maybe you develop a drug problem, that maybe your idle time leads to some horrific mental and emotional disaster. And you're seeing this because with this idle time, what is happening? Damn near every country in the world is rioting. They're all protesting. Why? Because they have free time. When people are busy working, people are busy going to sporting events and social events and living their lives, they don't have time to riot. They're happy. When they're depressed, they're bored, they have angst, they disagree with political cultures and political things that are being done. They feel, like I said, it's not whether it is right or it's wrong, it's how you feel as a person. You feel that something is being taken away from you. You're going to be pissed, and you're going to fight, and you're going to riot, and you're going to rally, and you're going to protest. And all of these side effect consequences, just open in your mind, just a little, may be worse than COVID yourself. Now, I know some of you probably had COVID. So some of you may have a light form that was 3 or 4 days, and you're like, hey, COVID's bullshit. They shut down the world for a cold. Some of you may have a completely different. You lost a family member, so it's a serious issue. I don't want to make light of coronavirus. But what I also want to say is I think a lot of people, the majority of people here are feeling, look, maybe it's serious, but I don't care. And that's kind of how I feel sometimes. I don't care. I want to live. I want to live my life. That's what I want to do. I want to do the things I want. I want to live the way I want. I don't want to constantly make sacrifices and stuff like that. That's not the kind of person that I am. I've never been that way. And I think many of you may feel that same kind of tension where you're like, I'm tired of giving up stuff, right? I don't want to give up anymore. I want to live. If it kills me, it kills me. I'm not saying that for me personally. I'm just making reference. Some people may have that thought. If it kills me, it kills me. I'd rather be dead than be a prisoner, right? One way to look at it. So to wrap up, guys, the financial consequences are unknown. This thing is obviously going to last a lot longer, and the market got it wrong. They got it wrong the first time, and that's just the way it is. It's an eye-opener. I got it wrong. I thought myself, man, it'll probably go away, or they'll dampen it down, immunity, all this, blah, blah. No. It's going to be here for a lot longer than I want it, you want it, we want it, the world wants it. So that's unknown. More importantly, it's that social impact. What is this doing to the psychology of people, and how is it hurting their lives? For me, I've had to change a lot of things that I've done, try to stay busy, try to be creative, try to come up with other things to just try to feel more alive every single day. And I know it's got to be tough. And when you're talking about people that have been shut down and they lost their businesses, I can relate. I remember having a business, what it's like to lose it, but having COVID take away your business, ruin your family, break your relationship down, it would lead you to drink. It will lead you to do drugs. So we really got to think about staying together, staying together through this and just trying to do what we can as a society. So anyway, guys, I hope this helped you out. I hope it made some sense as I was ranting. Protect your money, protect yourself, protect your families. If you're somebody that's depressed at home, you're struggling, I know it's tough. I know what it's like to go through losing businesses, being bankrupt and all that kind of stuff. Tomorrow's another day, man. As long as you're alive, tomorrow's another day, and it's a chance for you to correct the wrongs. It's another day. Stay focused, stay busy, stay positive, try to use your energy to make a difference in other people's lives and the people around you and the world around you. And eventually, we're all patient, we'll get through this together. So until the next one, take care guys, trade well, talk to you soon.